Well, hello there, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to this webinar on the 10 essential skills for next gen or this gen also project managers. My name is Ashley Hunt. So good to see everybody. Hopefully you're having a great day. Thank you for taking an hour out of it to hang out with me. I appreciate it. I am the senior project management instructor here at StormWind Studios, and I am curious what your job role is and how long you've been in project management, or maybe your job role is a little different and you're thinking, I'd like to get into project management. Or my favorite, which is I'm an accidental project manager. Like, I'm really good at my job and somehow now I'm in charge of all of these projects. So do me a favor, chat in. Let me get to know you a little bit better. I know some of you are still getting logged in, and then we will move forward with the webinar. And, obviously we only have an hour. And to talk about 10 essential skills in an hour anywhere in depth is fairly difficult, but maybe putting together a list of things that all of us, myself included, as project managers can focus in on and say, first of all, what am I really good at? What do I do really, really well? And what are some things that perhaps I can look into? Information tech management and associated projects. Awesome, Tim, thank you. Yeah, and if you are just logging in, I was trying to find out what your job roles are and how long you've been in project management, or you're trying to get into it. IT director who does a bit of everything. I've heard that before. IT manager for business systems for the past 3 years. Yeah, that little bit of everything, that accidental project management side of things. And I get a lot of IT folks, a lot of IT across healthcare and so on. IT manager for business systems for the past 3 years. I'm a supervisor for Feds, Cloud Ops. Recently took a PM course with me or with somebody else. If so, welcome back. IT manager for health department, 30 plus years. That's a long, yeah. QA has 3 years, no PM experience, but since we don't have a dedicated PM, figured I could leverage some good knowledge. Look at you go. That's awesome. IT delivery manager, 10 years, network and telephony infrastructure management. Cool. Well, good to meet y'all. Thank you so much for jumping in. I appreciate it. And, as mentioned, it's going to be tough to go in depth, but I would argue that in almost every single class that I teach, we do go in depth into these things and we talk about them a lot. IT team lead, jack of all trades. I'm the director of PTC engineering. You've been a PMP for over 25 years and managing projects for 30 plus years. Oh my goodness, PM is one of the dozens of hats that you wear. Yeah, we all do. We all wear a lot of hats in project management. And I always sort of joke with my class, and tell me if this is true for you too, but when somebody asks us what we do for a living in the project management space, a lot of times we focus on the deliverables. This is what, these are the deliverables. These are the types of projects that I work on, rather than what do we actually do, right? What do we do in a day-to-day basis? And so I want to focus on 3 distinct areas. And if you are a PMP or if you're already certified, this will count toward your professional development units also. But the reason why I'm thinking about that too is that the PMP exam, the project management professional exam, is broken down into 3 domains: people, process, and business environment. And they do that for a fairly significant reason. And it's based on surveys that they send out to current certified professionals within the Project Management Institute's ecosystem and say, what are you working on? What are some of the things that are important for project managers, or I wear a lot of hats, to be aware of? And one of the biggest shifts that I've seen in the 20 plus years I've been, a part of the Project Management Institute is that there's a real big focus now on people-centric skills. And a lot of these are easy to talk about, but there are varying levels of it's hard to do or it's easy for me to do. And one of the big topics of conversation in all of my classes, it doesn't matter if it's an Agile class or project management classes specific to predictive, etc., emotional quotient, like IQ, emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, comes up all the time It comes up in how we interact with people, how we build a team. Like, how many people would you say on average, because I know some of you probably have multiple teams, but how many people on average would you say are on your team of people that you have to interact with on a regular basis? And as we know, individuals are different human beings. They communicate differently. They actively listen, in some cases differently. They have different personalities and that kind of thing. Oh, hi, I missed that. PM Chief of Staff role, PMP since 2020, managing projects since 2005. Welcome. About 5, 6 to 8, 15 to 20. That's a big team. 50. Woo. That's a lot of personalities, right? 40 across shifts. 3 to 18, between 4 and 10. Anything more than ourselves could be considered a fairly large team. And when we talk about these things in class, like emotional intelligence and storytelling and communications, it's in some cases like, oh, really? But at the same time, it's super important, right? 8 people, between 4 and 10, and depending. The other thing we'll take a look at is ethical responsibility. And if you are within the Project Management Institute, and this isn't a pitch for them, but if you are, you're familiar with that they have a code of ethics and professional conduct. And so ethical and responsible leadership, adaptability and resilience, LOL, isn't that our job definition? I think it might be. Collaboration and influence. So those are going to be some of the things that we're going to dive into. And then we get into, because now things are moving so quickly in the tech space. How many of you are using AI in some way, shape, or form? Or maybe you're not allowed to within the workspace, but you use it at home. But I'm more thinking about work. Definitely, yes. Yeah, AI and automation literacy. It's just changing so fast, right? AI user, yes, not really 100%. AI cautious, and I understand that. I understand being totally AI cautious. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. Indeed, Copilot work-specific tools now too. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's from version 1 of ChatGPT to version 5 to version 4,000, whatever it's going to be in 2030. It's just moving so very quickly. And it's one of those things where we might not have even thought about it, or we're cautious of it and that kind of thing. But fortunately or unfortunately, it's definitely going to be part of the future. Hybrid collaboration and digital mastery. So of those teams of people and you yourself, are you co-located? Are you all in the office? Are you hybrid, or are you virtual? Or a mix of all three? But where is your team dynamic as far as in the office, face-to-face communication, or we use, a lot of Zoom, or Teams, video calls, that kind of thing, or it depends. It depends on the day. You're virtual, there's a mix. Yeah, and like in the hybrid zone, more hybrid, I see a lot of hybrids. You have 5 locations. We enjoy hybrid work. Yeah, you got a mix on the teams. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but there is a focus on that interactivity within the virtual space because we are using so much technology. Hybrid and co-located in regional office 2 times a week, HQ once a quarter, rest is work from home. Teams and video calls, mixed mostly in the office, distributed between 5 offices. So for those of you that are virtual, do you enjoy it? If you're hybrid, get to stay home a couple days a week and work in your flips, or your slippers or your slips, depending on where in the world you live. You prefer virtual. Yeah. So it's one of those things where we have to have the conversation because it is different. It is different from being co-located and having that face-to-face communication on a regular day. But at the same time, we're sort of, living in this digital virtual world anyway. Depends on the project. I enjoy fully remote. Same, I do too. But I'm in a different state from our headquarters. So absolutely, coworkers are spread across the country. Remote does have its challenges, and I'm glad you brought that up. Well, we're not going to delve too far into it today, but of course, there are certain challenges for that. So data-driven, hybrid collaboration, digital mastery, continuous learning, and just being curious about technology in general. Like I always joke, I have a technology problem. I have entirely too much tech in my house. It's a problem. Fully remote is great, but I do appreciate having face-to-face communication. It's better for collaboration. And I hear that, and I completely understand. It's true, it is. But when we look at that continuous learning and having curiosity about technology, I have entirely too much. And then we tie it into strategic and business skills. There's a lot of focus now in the project management space of, we're not in this bubble by just our projects and our bubbles and our departments anymore. There is a focus on organizational interaction with stakeholders, understanding why the business is making the decisions that they're making. How can we influence while also at the same time make sure that we're meeting those key performance indicators, if you will, or the metrics, and incorporating PMO that is less of a sort of controlling, do it this way PMO, and more of an intermediary between project managers and the organization. Use uncommon sense. Exactly. Right? It's true. And systems thinking from that top down, that business environment, and why organizations make the decisions they do, or why they choose to invest, and what kind of ROI are they expecting, is a really good skill to have. So for example, let me ask you this. How many of you are familiar with your organizational grand plan? Like maybe you have all hands meetings or something like that. You're fully up to date on where the organization is heading. Maybe you're a contributor to a business case, or at least you're privy to what's in the business case to give you, here's why they gave us that budgetary number, which is always not enough. Why they're making those decisions. Very familiar. Good. Department of Veterans Affairs, public information, fully up to date and contributing to newer strategic plans. Currently, awesome. Yeah, because I think that's important to know why we're doing what we're doing and why the organization is doing what it's doing, right? Yes, sit in on leadership strategic meetings. See, I think that's so important. Our organization does the same thing, fully transparent, which I appreciate. So let's talk about the human-centered skills. And, obviously a lot of this is what I call, information, but it's also easier said than done information. And ultimately getting to know the people that we work with, and the full truth of the matter is we can only control ourselves, right? We can only adapt how we communicate. We can only adapt how we solve conflicts and so on. But maybe use the webinar as somewhat of like a checklist of, okay, that's, I forgot about XYZ, or it's not something that I think about, or it's not something that I've ever tried to do before, or, hey, look at me doing all the right things. However that shakes out as we go through this. But emotional intelligence, understanding and managing emotions, not managing others' emotions, but being able to self-correct ourselves so that we're interacting as human beings. But empathy, not just in distributed or hybrid teams, also co-located teams. How many of you would say, like, give yourself a pat on, just like celebrate yourself? How many of you would say, I'm emotionally intelligent? I can diffuse conflict. I can see both sides of a conversation. I can adapt my communication strategies for the individuals in the room. You are? Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. See? Awesome. I would say all of my PMs are. Sometimes EQ, always working on it. And I think that's fair. I think because we're human, we're always working on it. And sometimes people just throw a big old wrench in the operation. But for the most part, 80% of the time, we are emotionally intelligent. And it's a super important skill to have. And improving collaboration and being able to understand both sides of it is a big deal. It really is. I mean, and here's another thing, and you might think this is kind of weird, but I'm curious what you think. How many of you use analogies or metaphor? Wait, let me back up. How many of you have to explain highly technical things to non-technical people? Hourly? Daily? Minute by minute? All the time? Oh, I know, right? I know, yeah, all the time, me, all day. Okay, so that's the first question, because I figured that was the case. So, all the time. Do any of you use analogies or metaphors to explain highly technical things to non-technical people? Tell them a story, if you will, like, for sure, right? Sometimes. Yeah, storytelling is a leadership tool. Use both. Awesome. Very often. Yeah, we use a lot of metaphors on the agile side of things. I was predictive for a very, very long time, and then I switched sides, but I'm more wagile, which is waterfall agile, but more on the agile side. It's one of your favorite things. Same, me too. And I tell a lot of stories in class as well. If any of you have taken a class with me, I explain things that maybe you're not familiar with in hopefully an understandable way, especially when their eyes glaze over. Right, because what we don't want is what is called the gulf of misunderstanding. Is like, I'm saying this and I understand this, and their eyes are glazing over and they're like, just do whatever. And then you do it and they say, that's not what I want. Yep, needs to be relatable. Exactly. Exactly. So storytelling, and I don't mean like, hey, sit down, senior management. Once upon a time, there was a project manager. But at the same time, it's really about communicating effectively and adapting our message to whomever is listening. I would guarantee that for many of you, your senior management or senior leadership wants the bullet points, right? I got 15 other project managers I got to collect information from. Just give me the bullet points. Whereas on maybe the team level or our stakeholder level, we are interacting and influencing and engaging them a lot more often. But either way, adapting that message for executives versus team audiences, and know thy audience, the public speaking code of ethics, right? But what, why, what, and how? It's literally like journalism 101. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Anybody do elevator statements at all? Is that part of your gig? I love when we use the we are building a bike story to explain software building. I like that too. We're building a bike. I use bicycles in my class all the time as an example because or cooking or something of that nature. When I teach Agile, like, well, let me ask you, your project management, what kind of life cycles are you using? Are you using a more predictive, traditional, waterfall, plan-based? They're all the same thing. Are you more in the hybrid zone, or are you practicing Agile? Oh, scaled Agile framework. Nice. Safe. So yeah, you're scaled. You probably have, that's why I have such a large team, I'm guessing, right? Got to scale up the Agile side of things. But how many of you are using Agile? Or maybe I've heard of it, but I don't even know what it is. You more on the waterfall side? Yeah, and so it depends on the project, but a lot of Agile. Yeah, and implementing Agile on an organizational level is very difficult. Sometimes too large. I saw that size of the team. I was like, oh my goodness. But yeah, so trying to explain what is Agile, I use a story. Here's the story. Trying to explain Agile to people who've never heard of it or like, sounds chaotic. I'm a predictive project manager. Like, what are you talking about? That kind of thing. And I use the example of, and if you have kids, you'll get this, but if you have children, could you sit down and plan out your child or children's calendars accurately for an entire year? Like when they're going to get strep throat, when they're not going to be friends with little Billy anymore, when they're going to want to switch from flute to soccer. Yeah, there's some things that we can plan out, but there is no way that we can plan out an entire year of our kids' calendars and predict it accurately. But could we do it for a week and be somewhat close to accurate? Yeah, still can't plan the strep throat, but it's a risk event, and those happen. But ultimately, using stories or using different ways of looking at either technical information or hard to explain, being persuasive in that storytelling as well, helps people get on board, stakeholders included. Ethical and responsible leadership, decision-making in the age of AI and automation. Yeah, that kind of ties into that technological side that we're going to talk about too, but ethics are important when it comes to using artificial intelligence as well, because what we don't want is bias in data. We want to make sure that we're being transparent with data-driven, and if you've ever gotten an incorrect answer with ChatGPT or something like that, yeah, it still hallucinates, just so we're clear. It does not necessarily get every single thing right. And now you're starting to see on articles, this was AI, created by AI, it may have mistakes in it. So not there yet, but ethics is a differentiator, right? For current leaders, I don't know about future I'm sort of plotting my own, like, what do I need to improve before 2030, which shockingly is almost 4 years, a little over 4 years away. AI only as good as the data input. Exactly. Bad data in, bad data out. Right. So, yeah, can we use it for dashboards and so on? Sure. Are we going to use it to collate meeting notes, that kind of thing? Sure. It still takes a human being to go back through it and make sure it's correct. For sure. Tools for resilience. I'm going to throw out retrospectives. How many of you are familiar with that? If you're safe, a little bit, it depends on the project. Chances are you've utilized retrospectives. And I feel like a lot of people that have never ever heard of a retrospective before, when they learn about them, they're like, oh, that's not a bad idea. Retrospectives are more typical on the Agile side. When I say Agile, that's just a label. There's 50 plus Scrum, extreme programming, safe, feature-driven development. There's all sorts of ones under that Agile umbrella. At many levels, varied outcomes. Interesting. Yeah, retrospective, for those of you on the predictive side, maybe you have a lessons learned meeting at the end of your projects that you got a kickoff, you got the lessons learned, it's the bookends of predictive project management. In adaptive or Agile frameworks, if you will, typically they're run in iterations, like 1 week to 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that kind of thing. And at the end of every 3 weeks or 2 weeks, the team gets together and has a retrospective. And it's literally, what should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we change? And implementing that continuous improvement on the project level across the board is helpful. Varied outcomes, whether or not it works, and so on. But it's a way of establishing micro goals. So we're getting close to the end of the year. How many of you do like a yearly goal list? Sometimes our organizations say, oh, what do you want to work on in 2026? How many of you do that? Or just mentally in your mind, you're like, okay, this is, and it could be anything. I want to travel here. I want to make, yes, exactly. Objectives and key results is OKRs. Part of yearly evaluations, nice. Yep, 26 goals inputted by October 30th. Wow, look at you go. I feel like I'm late now. Yeah, and I think we all understand, but a lot of people don't, that at least in the United States, a lot of people who make New Year's resolutions don't keep them. And the reason that they don't keep them is because they're too vague. I want to make more money. I want to travel more. I want more time off. I want to be a better parent. I want to, whatever it is, better spouse. And it's so vague, it just doesn't have the specifics that are necessary to get there. And sometimes it's such an overwhelming goal. It's like, if I could just break it down to these micro goals, it's not so overwhelming. Fiscal versus calendar. There you go. Your New Year's resolution is not to have any. That's a good one. That gets you out of that whole wrangle, right? It's a good one. But building reflection habits, like what worked, what didn't work, and so on. And I think most project managers are very focused on, I think all professionals are very focused on being as successful as we can. And we have certain human drivers of what that looks like. Some people are achievement oriented. They have very specific achievement goals that they're attempting to reach, and that's at the top of their hierarchy. Some people are more institutionally power oriented, where they want to be in charge. They want to move up the corporate ladder, if you will, and that's their goal, and that's at the top of their hierarchy. And others are more affiliation oriented. If they see people who teach can't do, I'm like, people who teach don't want to do. I don't want to be in management anymore. No, thank you. Affiliation, I'm more achievement and affiliation oriented, and I like to work on teams. I like to work with great people. I like to collaborate and brainstorm and that kind of thing. And so whatever our drivers are, you could almost break them down into those three categories and say, well, where am I trying to get to? And build that trust also as part of it, collaboration and influence across boundaries. And there are challenges. What would you say is the biggest or bigger challenge on the virtual team side of things? Is it communication? Is it time zones? Is it language differences? Are you not able to get together with your team face to face? I don't know why, because I'm on camera all the time, but I am like so awkward on Zoom calls. It's not even funny. They make me so uncomfortable. And I don't know. I think it's because of that whole Brady Bunch approach where everybody's looking at everybody. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Really great teachers have already done what they are teaching. Oh, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. Virtual works for our team. See, I think the majority of our team are hybrid, mostly are co-located, that kind of thing. And ultimately, I'm just, I'm awkward on Zoom calls. But navigating politics and stakeholder dynamics, this is just our day to day, right? I mean, it just is engaging our stakeholders, trying to figure out what our communication strategy is going to be. And I realize that's hard to quantify, but more I'm talking about how are we going to distribute information so that everybody's all on the same page. Speaking of information, digital fluency and data skills. And ultimately, I would say this is a moving target. Your team is on camera as much as possible so we can laugh at each other. That's good. I just had a Teams call with my bosses before this, and I'm always like, derp. I don't know what to say. Not knowing when things happen so you can plan accordingly. Yes, when teams are physically together, it's easier to stay on top of things. I think you're right about that. I mean, sure, there are pros and challenges to being virtual versus being hybrid and that kind of thing. And on the flip side of that, and you can disagree with me depending on your own experience, you always can, but I feel like virtual teams also don't have as much personality conflicts because they're separate from. They get together on meetings. They're separate from. There's none of the like water cooler talk. There's less interaction. So therefore, different personality types and different communication styles and that kind of thing aren't interacting on a regular basis. But there's pros and challenges to everything, right? And when we look at AI or just technology in general, there are pros and challenges to both of these things. I mean, it really, really just depends. It's like, it depends on organizational acceptance and understanding. One time a client wanted to meet face to face, but my team didn't have a physical office to meet, and we're across the country. Yeah, and I think that's, was that recent? I think there are still, I hesitate to use the word like old school, but there's still that connection need or dislike of technology. And hey, if you really want our business, that kind of thing, then you're going to come to me. But it's expensive. Like there's the ROI on that is only because of that face-to-face interaction. But I get it. To a degree, the little things about a coworker irritate you less virtually. Yep, that's true. I'm not all running around the office irritating people all day long. It's true. And when we look at AI, automation, and literacy, trying to understand what it can and can't do. And I'll never forget, I think it was 2020 or 2021. I know there was still pandemic going on. And our CEO was like, oh, there's this cool thing called ChatGPT. It's artificial intelligence. And we're all like, you've never used it, heard of it, knew what things like that were coming. But he's like, I encourage everybody to use it. I encourage everybody to use it. So fast forward 2026 on our campuses, like my classes, the PMP and the Agile certified practitioner specifically, we've got an AI like sandbox in there that my students can go into and ask questions about all of the topics that we talk about, certification, that kind of thing. It does not go out to the internet. So it's not pulling information. You're not putting any personal information in there. You're simply asking questions, right? And it's giving answers in real time. Now I email back very quickly. If I'm not teaching, I will email you back if you have a question, but you have that capability to go specifically, what is that formula again for, earned value or whatever the case may be, and get that information. So there's some really good things that are happening in the world with AI and other things, we got to treat it like an assistant. We just do. And automating repetitive tasks is a great thing. So If you use ChatGPT, why and how do you use it? Do you use it for, like, I'm salty today and the tone of my email? Throw it into ChatGPT without any personal information and let it remove the salt. Anybody do that? You read and reread your emails over and over and over again before you send them out. Why? Because of tone. Yes, spelling, grammar, all of that, right? But we have we have software for that too. But at the same time, to correct tone, some people, that's all they use it for. Some people will use it to create an agenda for a meeting. Some people will use it to generate drafts. There you go, technical reference, writing drafts. Some people will use it to improve code. No, nothing wrong with a little wordsmithing every now and then, especially if you're salty, especially if you're like, via email and you're like, whoa, okay, I better check myself before I wreck myself. Okay, ChatGPT, can you fix this for me? Unless it's like your internet service provider, then have at it, right? But automating repetitive tasks, scheduling, and risk scoring. Now, some of the ways that I've used this in the past, and I've done several webinars on ChatGPT and project management on both sides. They're recorded. This is being recorded. You can check them out if you're interested in that, but just how to use it. And I find that risk management, it's pretty good at. How many of you do any kind of formal risk management? By that, I mean risk register, you assess probability and impact, you create responses, those kinds of things. How many of you are utilizing risk management or fairly robust strategy, or are you just winging it and grabbing the fire extinguisher? I'm not judgy. There's no wrong answer, right? But I do a bunch. I do feel like ChatGPT, you can say, this is my industry. This is the type of project I'm working on without any personal information, and say, generate a list of the 20 big risk categories or individualistic risks that I might need to be worried about on this particular project, and very, very quickly can help get you there, especially if it's like a unique project, you've never done it before, or you're new to the organization. Those are just some ideas. It can create management plans for you. You just go back in and update it. Ethical AI adoption is part of our accountability. Copilot, same. I just happen to use ChatGPT, but Copilot will do the same thing. Yeah. No. What's Elon Musk? Grok? All of them do the same thing. My more experience with ChatGPT. Love the AI ideas you'd be using. That's awesome. It can generate your communications management plan, agenda items. It can take bullet points and create paragraphs. It can take paragraphs and create bullet points. My only thing with it, clearly, is that we want to keep it generic in a sense, because we don't want, for me, I'm risk averse, so we're cautious about putting too much information. I can summarize a document, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or news stories, even if you're just using it for personal, can help you brainstorm. It can write really good personas on the adaptive side or agile side that describe your end user. It can write user stories. It can put a generic list of schedule activities for specific industries, that kind of thing, very, very quickly. But we're in charge, right? We can go through that data and say, yeah, no. But we're not going to spend an hour doing some of these things, because that hour can be better utilized in other ways. Use Grok, ChatGPT, and Copilots, and some do give more detail than others. And, when they first came out, it's great for meeting summary. When it first came out, it was all like, all about the prompting, and you've got to figure out how to, in a sense, that's true. But it's gotten better because so many people have prompted, and it's learning. It's a large learning entity, if you will. And it's learning a lot. And so we don't really have to be like super prompters anymore. Specific to what, like if you're writing code, then yeah, you got to be a super prompt. But if you wanted to write you a traditional predictive communication management plan, that's all you really need to say. But the other thing is, if your organization is sort of like, nah, we really don't. Because if you work for government, not for profit. I get it. Those kinds of things they might be wary of, and ethically oversight of ethics and how maybe our team are using some of these things and so on. But ultimately, framing AI initiatives within business value, we can focus on what's called cycle time. Cycle time is value added time plus non-value added time equals cycle time. So not that these documents aren't valuable, but if it takes me an hour to create a communications management plan from scratch because we don't have a template, if I spend that hour doing that, but ChatGPT takes 30 seconds, now I have an entire hour where I can do other things. I can focus on project work because trust me, I can feel your pain because I know that this is true. But how many of you are given very little time to plan? Like very little. It's go, 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 go. You've been assigned to this, hit the ground running. No, we don't have time for planning, but make sure I have a schedule and a cost baseline. Other than that, get moving. Zero time. So our cycle time is dependent on what projects we're working on and where we need to focus our efforts. That's why a lot of people don't do risk management, almost none sometimes, including none for meeting agendas. And that's the point that's what I'm trying to hit home here too, is the ROI is valuable to the organization because we don't have time to do those things, but they're still expected to be done, right? Definitely plan on the fly. You do have time to plan, but do other stuff instead until the last minute. Hey, you do you. Like it's all good. You could use ChatGPT to hook you up. But framing AI initiatives with business value, it's and saying, hey, look, I'm spending an exorbitant amount of time for all these documents that you want. And if I didn't have to do that, if I could use AI in a safe, ethical way, then now I have time to actually work on the 80 projects that you just assigned me, right? Data-driven, intuition versus evidence-based management. I think we all use both. But ultimately, what we're talking about is key performance indicators, quality, right? ROI, dashboards, that kind of thing, and storytelling through data. If it can rip the data for us, we can construct the story and be able to communicate effectively to senior management and try and avoid all the data dumps. Because, if you have stakeholders where you attach documents and it's just crickets and you don't hear back from them because they didn't read them, those are data dumps, right? And they might request them, but they don't read through them. And it is important for risk awareness. Like I said, I don't know if you're a risk taker. I'm risk averse. I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing and what kind of information I put in there, and I'm very protective of it. Cybersecurity. How many of you worry about cybersecurity? Yeah. I mean, for real, it is a huge deal, right? Or build an entire project and the client doesn't even use it. Oh, I hate when that happens. It does happen though, doesn't it? But building digital awareness into project onboarding and closure and identifying, AI risks up front. Okay, team, we're going to use this, but at the same time, here are the rules. Here are the rules. Whether it's hybrid, co-located, using async tools for continuous collaboration, whatever the case may be, there does also have to be some norms. And we talk about this in class as far as what the Project Management Institute would call a team charter, which essentially are the ground rules for the teams and how they communicate. And a lot of it's everything you needed to know about being on a team you learned in kindergarten, like be polite, here are the working hours, that kind of thing. But in some cases, how many of you have to be on camera on a Zoom call or Teams call or whatever you're using on your video conferencing? How many of you have to be on camera? Because we do. Yes, must be on camera. Yeah, same. We've already talked about how I'm awkward, so we don't need to go there again. On camera is very preferred but not required. Fortunately, most are face PCI. Oh, I got you. Most of the time. Depends on the meeting. 50-50. Preferred but not required. No, you don't have to be seen, just heard. Lucky. You're lucky. Most of the time. That really gets awkward when half the people are on camera and the other half aren't. That's even more awkward. Because they're like, what do I do? What do I do? But I also feel like if people are on camera, you have that body language. You're able to read that, as awkward as it is. You're able to read that body language and so on. Most of the time, it's customers on camera. We must be on camera. See, that makes sense. That makes sense. We make fun of those who don't. Oh yeah. See, just guilt them right into it. Guilt them right into it. But we're talking about building learning into learning culture and teams. I think the way the world is going right now, we have to stay on our toes, right? We're working with 5 different generations in the workforce. Some people are more technically inclined than others. They maybe are younger, and so they communicate a little bit differently and that kind of thing. But I feel like it's okay to try something and have it not work, and having smart failures. They used to call it fail, faster, succeed sooner, that kind of thing. But having smart failures, let's try this to improve. And if it doesn't work, oh well, we learned, and be able to correct fairly quickly. And mentoring peer to peer, I'm a huge fan of cross training. And I know you're probably thinking, you're like, have time for all of that. I just don't. But you're at a webinar that for learning, right? So clearly that's something that you're interested in, and it's one of those situations where if we can build, even if it's just not a meeting, but it's a retrospective or it's a conversation or something where ultimately we can try and learn as a team. Yeah, Loop is great for tracking project data. I know, I've never heard of that one. I'll have to check it out. But AI copilots will summarize meetings, write reports, flag risks, no code, yay. PMs will curate the right tools, not chase every new platform. And it's tempting to do that. It is tempting to say, ooh, this new thing just came out. I gots to have it. That's me. And I have to be careful. I'm like, ooh, Midjourney. Oh, this. Let me check this out. And before I know it, I have 87 subscriptions to things I really don't need. I'm working on it. But strategic and business skills, and I'll probably move a little bit, obviously, because I like to end on time because I respect your time. But when we get into systems thinking and strategic alignment, projects are interconnected within the organizational ecosystems. And a lot of you were saying, we're part of that. We are, we're kept up to date. We know, at least at a somewhat surface level or a much more in-depth level, where the organization is headed, what they're trying to accomplish, and we're trying to align our deliverables and our projects and so on to where the organization wants us to go. And I think that's important. I think it used to be, a lot of you have been PMs for a while, right? Or you've been in your industry for a while. I thought I saw like 23 years or something since 2005 in there. I don't know if this is true for you, but way back when I was working for a company that's now defunct that you've probably heard of, You've Got Mail, and it was very hierarchical. Nobody ever told us what the deal was. It was very hush hush, and we're senior management, and we're behind closed doors, and you don't need to know. Just do your job. Your motivation is you got your paycheck, right? Yeah. Feeling great about being here, ultimately. And so now these days, it's even more important to understand what's going on organizationally, especially if we've been with the organization for a while, but even more importantly, if we're newer to the organization, to really be kept up to date on what's happening, and so that we can communicate in the same language for here's what they think is important, here's what we're doing to meet that goal, and here's how we communicate that back to our sponsors or our senior management to be able to say, okay, this is what you thought was important. Here's what we've achieved and met the goal, hopefully, or if not, why not, right? Participating so we have portfolios, programs, projects. Projects tend to be singular in nature. Programs are a group of projects managed in a coordinated fashion, and larger organizations have portfolios, which is much more scaled as far as projects, programs, products, services, that kind of thing. And so it has to be coordinated much more efficiently. But change is tough. People don't like change. Change is chaos. We don't like, no likey for change. In fact, I talked to a lot of people in my classes where they implemented Agile from the organizational level down. And it took to get effective organizationally. It took 2 years. 2 years to implement Agile organizationally, and they're still working on it. Change is, I agree with you, Kelly. Change is a chance to get it right. And failing and then trying something new also gives us the chance. But, some executives especially don't like change. Ours is the opposite. They're just like, let's try this, see if it works. I'm like, okay, let's try. Communicate why first. Why are we headed this direction? Why is this so important? And then here's what we're going to do to get there. That helps with your team too, especially if your team is a little bit like, we want to try something new, or it's an organizational initiative to do something new. And the team's like, man, I don't want to go back to their, habits or whatever they were doing. So I think it's key to measure adoption, not just completion. People are trying, they might not be getting there as quickly as maybe the organization wants them to. This is especially true when we take on different life cycles, for sure. Sometimes adoption must be mandated, right? We're doing it this way. Drop mic. That's it. Yeah. How can I help you get there? I will help you get there. I understand. But look, this is coming from above and we don't have a choice, right? So that's an important conversation, especially specifically mandated change organizationally. And that could be, look, we are going through a merger, we're going through an acquisition, or we're changing our scripts for sales, or whatever the case, any change organizationally can affect the team. It can cause a little chaos, right? And so we want to be cognizant of that. Using scenario planning to anticipate future conditions. We had this conversation that's called Remember the Future. And remember the future is a way of saying, you know what? How could we fail? Why would we fail? What could we do not to fail? It's a somewhat freeing conversation, because in my past life, it was failure's not an option. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care if you got to be here all night. Failure is not an option. And now having that conversation in advance and saying, what could go sideways here? And I'm not just talking about risk events, because that's an important thing too. I'm talking about what could really, really, really go sideways. Let's get in front of it now. Let's talk about it openly and brainstorm some solutions were to occur without analysis paralysis, which could happen, but applying decisions as far as cost and opportunity. What could it cost and what's the opportunity? Fail fast and embrace the red. Exactly. It's true. When we look at cost versus opportunities are risk events. We don't know if it's absolutely going to happen. There's a probability and impact that it could, and something good could happen. But, how much are we trying to invest money into, let's try this or let's try that? Organizations are a little bit like to play it a little bit closer to the chest. So we have to be strategic about it and define benefits. And they're saying during initiation at the beginning of our projects with a benefits management plan or a vision statement or a kickoff meeting that really goes into expectations of ROI and where are we headed and where are we going, and tracking what are those key performance indicators that's going to meet that return on investment. And let's try and get a handle on it up front. Now, that could be Agile. It could be predictive, could be hybrid. Doesn't matter. Sometimes working to avoid risk can be an improvement opportunity. For sure. Yes. That did not happen because we changed our plan and it didn't occur. And now everything's coming up roses over here. You're not wrong. When we counteract a threat, it's an opportunity to not even have that threat in the first place. Report benefits in a language that executives understand. And I'm staying in front of it. Executives understand whatever that language is. And if we engage our stakeholders in an effective way, we already know how they communicate. I mean, do any of you have stakeholders that are an absolute nightmare? You don't have to name names. It's just between us. You don't have to tell anybody else. But do you have stakeholders that are just a pain? Oh, you're welcome. You're still listening. No worries. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh boy. Yeah. A couple. Oh yeah. Those are the emails you got to throw into ChatGPT. Too many to count, right? Is it a personality thing though? Or is it just maybe they're really direct communicators and you're like, I'm more emotionally intelligent. I'm better at active listening than you are. Because sometimes this personality is a power thing. Of course not. Not me. My stakeholders are perfect. They're perfect humans. Yeah, so all we can do is adapt how we do, right? To try and engage them. It's a personality thing. They're just a difficult person. There's nothing we can do about that. There's nothing we can do about power posturing. There's nothing we can do about personalities that just suck. There's nothing we can do. All we can do is change how we interact with them. That's it. We can only change ourselves. But it is for those types of personalities and power grabbers and all of that. It's like, what is the psychological thing that I can do to, one, be emotionally intelligent, but also change the way that I communicate? And that's pretty much it. So maybe there isn't a language that they understand that we are capable or fluent in speaking, but we can certainly try.